Hilchis Toen V'Nitan Perik Revi. So the Rambam continues discussing the dinim of Meida B'Miktsas. Then at the end of the Perik, the Rambam will discuss the dinim of Mitech She'eni Yochel Ishava Mishali. Perik Revi. Ein Meida B'Miktsas Chayiv Shvuah Min HaTeira, Achi Tonenu B'Dover Shebemida, Eshe B'Mishkol, Eshe B'Minyan, and also V'Yoidolei B'Dover Shebemida, Eshe B'Mishkol, Eshe B'Minyan. In other words, the tefiyah has to be quantified. It has to be a clear tefiyah how much you're being teveya. Either how much as far as the size, how much as far as the weight is concerned, or how much as far as the number is concerned. And al derazeh, in order for it to be considered a Meida B'Miktsas, the hidah also has to be a hidah, a clear hidah of exactly how much he's being Meida. Either how much in size, how much in weight, and how much in number. Ketzad. Asara dinim yeshli biyotcha. And on that he answers back, Ein lecha biyodi ela chamisha. So it was clear. The taina was clear, 10, and the hidah was 5. It was clearly, it's clear what we're talking about. Or al der is a kur shel chitim yeshli biyotcha, and he answers, Ein lecha biyodi ela lesach. Lesach is a half a kur, 15 chitim, 15 so. Or shtei litim shel meshi yeshli biyotcha. It says a weight of 2 litim of meshi, and on that he answers him, no, Ein lecha biyodi ela rutul. You have the weight of a rutul. So the din is harez echai v'chol kol kietzav, because over here the taina was with a measurement and weight or number, and the hidah was also with measurement. Avalim omerli kis mali dinim masartilecha. Because he's not telling him how many dinim. He's saying a kis mali dinim, and even if we're talking about a specific wallet, but the word mali, filled, doesn't necessarily mean filled until that they can't put it anymore. So filled is not really a clear amount how much we're talking about. It could be a little bit less or a little bit more, and either way it'll be called filled. Kis mali dinim masartilecha. And on that he answers, like masartile lechamishim. So the hidah was clearly with a number. But on the other end, the tefiyah was without a number. Or fakert meya dinim masartilecha. The tefiyah was with a number. Meya dinim masartilecha. And on that he answers, le masartili el tzreir shel dinim. You gave me a bundle of dinim, I don't know how many they were. And as we said before, that in such a case, since I'm not giving it to you in your hand, it wouldn't be halach. So over here, there wouldn't be a ptur of halach. But on the other hand, here there's another ptur. The ptur is because he's not saying a clear number of how much he's being made. So the din is ariza potter v'chein kol kietzbez, he's potter from Shvuas Meida B'Miktsas, because Lepel, the hidah wasn't a clear hidah of how much he was being made. Now he tells him, Bayis Moli Tvua Masartulach. Again, the Tvia was a Bayis Moli Tvua. So again, even if you're saying which Bayis, but Lepel, the word Moli Tvua is not clear how much Moli is. Because you can have something which it's not filled till mamish that you can't put it anymore, but Lepel is called Moli. And there's sometimes it's moli, it's even more filled. In other words, there's even more in there. So Bayis Moli Tvua is not clearly a davar shebemido, shebemishkol, shebeminyan. And v'halo eimer le'masarti le'al asara kurim. So we hear the tviyah was not a davar shebeminyan, it wasn't with a minyan, and the hidah wasn't with a minyan. Or fakert hasara kurim masarti lecha. The tviyah was asara kurim masarti lecha, and on that the nitzvah is tiny. Any yedeh kamahem sharelei modadatem b'fanai. You didn't count it. So again, so over here the hidah wasn't with a midah or a mishkol. So the din is potter. So the nekuda of the din is one din that the tefiyah has to be with a midah and mishkol or a minyan, and the hidah has to be with that same also midah mishkol. It doesn't have to be the same, but it has to be also with a midah mishkol and minyan. Masha'inken, if one of them is not, so then there's no din of it shvuas Meida B'Miktsas. Now halacha gimel bayis ze moli adaziz masartilecha. Over here, he's not telling him the number, but he's telling him how much was it filled. It was filled until the ledge. That's what the tiveya was telling. Bayis ze moli adaziz masartilecha. Ba'alo emer no ad hachalein. It was filled until the chalein. So over here, there is a midah. It's clear midah. He's saying how much was it filled. He's saying it was filled until the ledge. That's the tiveya. And the nitzvah is telling no, it was only filled until the window. So the din is chayiv. V'chein kol kietzbas. So that's din number one, that the Meida B'Miktsas has to be a tviyah with a midah, a mishkal or a minyan, and the hidah has to be with a midah, mishkal or minyan. Halacha dalet. Now, ein Meida B'Miktsas chayiv shua, ad sheyoida b'davar she'efshel le'lechber bey. He has to be Meida in a way that he was Meida. The Pashtus Advarim from the Rambam is that, in other words, he could have not been Meida, and Lepel he was Meida. Ketzat. Misha Toin al Chaveri ve'omar Mea Dinim Yesh Li Etzlecha Chamishim Shebishtar Mea Dinim Yesh Li Etzlecha. You owe me 100 dinim. Now Chamishim Shebishtar is that. First of all, I have a star which says Chamishim, and then also the Chamishim B'lei Shtar. You also owe me another 50 B'lei Shtar. And that the person responds, Ein lecha biyodei ele chamishim b'shtar. The chamishim b'shtar is true. Masha'engen, the chamishim which is shalei b'shtar is not true. Is on that is ein ze meide b'mixas hatayin. That's not called meide b'mixas hatayin. Sharei hashtar leiteil kfirosabei. So the churi, that's nichlo. The Rambam says ein meide b'mixas chayiv shua at sheyede b'dover she'ef shalich perbei. But a star he cannot be kaifer, and therefore that's not considered a hidah. That would l'churi be the pashtus of pshat. That a hidah means something that you were made the mirtzeincha. That's called a hidah. And then the Rambam adds. The Rambam doesn't just stop by saying shari ashtar leteil kfirosibei. The Rambam says varikol nechasav mishubadim bei, and therefore vafilu kafir bei hayachayiv l'shalom. So these words varikol nechasav mishubadim bei vafilu kafir hayachayiv l'shalom. The question is, why is that necessary? L'chura the pashtus advarim is because since he wasn't made in dover shiachal lichper bei. So the Maisa in Gemara, they put this case as a din of Halach, that this is part of the Ptur of Halach. Now the Ptur of Halach means that Lepel, when you're coming with a Tviyah, and I'm going ahead and giving you half of your Tviyah, so basically I'm saying there's no point, that Tviyah on that half is finished already, because I paid you already. And Elamai, you only have a Tviyah on the other half. On the other half, I'm a Kefer Hakel. So over here also, the Gemara says that by a star, when you're made on the Chamishin Shebishtar, that's called Halach. So the Pashtus Advarim is, because since you have a Shibud on my Nechasim, through the star, you have a Shibud on Nechasim, and I can't be Koifer on this Shibud of Nechasim. So since I can't be Koifer on this Shibud of Nechasim, so Mela, it's Halach. So it's Mela Halach. So the reason why a star is Halach is because a star, you already have the Shibud, you already have the Shibud. But on the other hand, the Rambam doesn't just say that. The Rambam starts off with saying that the problem is because you are made the bedavar she'ef shelelich perbei. So on that the Mefarshim explain, which is not so clear in the Rambam, that it works together. Another works together. It's said like this: that if lepel I would have been able to be kaifer. So even though I'm being moida and lepel there's a shibud, but lepel you can't take that shibud from the lekuchas. Because lepel, since it's efshel lichper, so the fact that I'm moida wouldn't entitle you to take it from the lekuchas. So memela wouldn't be halach. Halach means you have it already. You don't have it already, because if I'm going to go sell it, so memela you're not going to be able to take it. So therefore it works together. And on one hand, it's I'm being moida in davish efshel lichper, and therefore you'll be able to take my hidah from the lekuchas. And on the other hand, that kol nechas mishubadim, so you already have it. So therefore it's halach. So in other words, it comes out that the Rambam doesn't mention the word halach in this halacha. The Rambam just starts off the words that you have to be made the bedavar shef shalich perbei, and an ashtar is leil yeil kfirase. The thing is only that the Rambam adds varikol nechasav mishubadim bei, and vafilu kafar hayachayiv l'shalom. So these words, this shaila, what the Rambam means with those words. So on that the Mefarshim explained that the Rambam means with those words that nechasav mishubadim bei, and therefore it's halach. And that's what really the Gemara says. The Gemara said this case is halach, and therefore, even though the Rambam doesn't say halach, it means halach. He said before, leiteil kfirase, that din of leiteil kfirase is a din in halach. I'm just saying, in the Rambam itself, when you read the Rambam, Kipshutei, in the Rambam it doesn't really say that this has anything to do with halach. Al kol pon, lefichach nishba heses ala chamishim. Halacha hei. No, nishba heses ala chamishim, because since that's not considered a meideh b'miktzas, so Elamai, you're a kafir on the mixas. The kafir your mixas without being a meideh b'miktzas. So just like you swear a shvuas heses when you're a kafir hakil, so who adin you'll swear a shvuas heses on this mixas, because which you don't have a din of a meideh b'miktzas, because you were made on the star, and star is eine yochel lichper bei, and leteil bei kfirase, and kol nechasav mishubad bei. Halacha hey, star shekasa bei sloim v'lei hisker minyan. In star it says sloim, but it doesn't say how many sloim. Now malvei merchomish sloim sheyesh li biyodcha hem aksuvim bei. The 5 sloim which you owe me, that's what the star means. V'alevei meno ein lecha biyodi el shalish vehem aksuvim b'shtar. So the pale in the star it says sloim. The malvei tainig it means 5, and the leva tainig it means 3. Now the pale, if the leva wouldn't have admitted that it's 3, so the malvei could have only taken 2, because lepel miat rabim shtayim. So sloim means at least 2. So if he would have only been made in 2, so that would have been the previous halacha, that lepel he was made bedavar sheini yochel lichper bei. But Lepel, he was made them 3. So Lechura, the third, was Yochel Lichber Bei. And Lepel, he was made them. So Lechura, he goes into together of made the b'miktzas. For the 2 that he was made, he's not a made the b'miktzas. But for the 3rd that he was made, the Lechura is a made the b'miktzas. So on that we're saying no, that Lepel, since he could have said 2 and been supported by the shtar, so the fact that he said 3 was a Meshav Aveda Dikeido. It was something that he did, which he didn't really have to do. And there was a Takonas Chachamim that even though Be'emes he's a Meida B'miktzas, but nevertheless a Meshav Aveda is Potim in Ashvua to encourage a Meshav Aveda to pay. To be Meshav Aveda. Now, Be'emes, every Do B'miktzas, you can tell him he's a Meshav Aveda. So on that's what the Gemara says. Mepnei Ma'am Rateda made Miktzah Tiny Yeshavar, Rabbi says. So the Pshat, because Eino the Meis Potim B'fnei Balchevi. So Mele, he's not a Meshav Aveda. You're saying he's a Meshav Aveda. He's not a Meshav Aveda. Because the reason why he was Meida is because he didn't have the Hazah to be made, to be Kaifer. Masha'enkin over here, when he has a shtar to support him, so he could have said 2. Whereas over here, we don't have this klal of Eino the Meis Potim because he was been supported by the shtar. And nevertheless, he was made under 3. So that 3rd that he was made is a din of a Meshav Aveda. And since there's a din of a Meshav Aveda, so he's Potim and Ashvul. Let's read again inside. Halachei, shtar shekosa b'sloim. And his communion, mal ve'emer, chomer sloim, sheyesh li biyotcha, hei maksuvim bei, v'alei ve'emer, no, ein lecha biyodi, el sholish, v'hei maksuvim b'shtar. Is aval pi she'ein mechai v'nesi b'shtar ze el shtayim. Be'emes, with this shtar, we could have only been mechayim shtayim. V'arihei de b'sela, she'ef sheli lichberei. So he's not included in the previous halacha, where a person is made the b'davar she'ef sheli lichberei, because Lepel over here, he was made the in davar she'ef sheli lichberei, because he could have said shtayim, and Lepel said sholish. So l'churi, he is a made the b'miktzas. Nevertheless, there is a potter. Why? Mipnei shehu kim meshav aveda. He's like a meshav aveda. V'takonas chachami shekol sheyoshev aveda le'yishavik mishabiyani b'mkemis. It's just like a meshav aveda. Even though he's a made the b'miktzas, he's part of mashvua. So Alder is over here when he is being made on something which really he could have been koifer and been supported by the shtar, so he has the din of a meshav aveda, and that's part of takonas chachamim that he doesn't swear, even though ba'atzim he's a made the b'miktzas. V'chein ha'emel lechaveri amali abba sheyesh li lebiyot chamona. It's not the Tiveya that's coming and says he knows the Tainus Bari. He says, Omer li'aba, sheyesh le biyot chamona, v'halo emer no, ein lecha biyodi ele chamishim. So he could have really said that he doesn't know him anything, because Lepel, this person is not the Balcheve, this person is only a son, so he's not the Balcheve, he doesn't really have a Tainus Vadai, is nevertheless, and so therefore, Harei ze Meshav Aveda. So the fact that it was made in Chamishim, he didn't have to be made in Chamishim. A normal made in B'miktzas is not a Meshav Aveda, because of the klal of Eino Demeis Ponim B'fnei Balcheve. But over here, since this is not Balcheve, this is person that's saying Mon Amar Li Abba Mon Li Biyotcha. So the fact that it was made to the son is Harei ze Meshav Aveda, and therefore Potter Af Mishuas Esses, because a Meshav Aveda is Potter Saif Mishuas Ateiros, Saif Mishuas Esses. Then Ein Tzarech Leimer Im Heidem Yatzmei. Person comes over to a Yosem and he says, Mona Hoya Lovicha Biyodi V'nasati Lechamishim V'nisha Lechamishim Shezeh Potter Af Mishuas Esses. So he's Potter Af Mishuas Esses. Aval Yeirish Shetoan V'Omer. The Yeirish comes along. The case over there was that Omer Li Abba, that he has a Mona Biyotcha. So we don't know. It's just Omer Li Abba. Masha'enken Yeirish Shetoan V'Omer Ani Yedeh B'Vadai. Sheyesh lo avi biyodcha biyad avicha mana. V'u'emer no, ein lo biyodi ele chamishim. So there was a tainus vadi, taka not a tainus vadi v'keach hatzmei, but a tainus vadi that he knows for a fact that he owes his father money. So and he tainus no, ein lo biyodi ele chamishim, or ein lo biyad avi ele chamishim. And my father only owed him chamishim, so there's 2 tainus vadis on both sides. So that is harei ze made of mixes. That's called a made of mixes, and therefore v'yishava. So he has to swear. So basically, the Rambam was saying that there's a din of a Meidem Mikzas, but there's another din that when a Meidem Mikzas is a Meshav Aveda, so there was a Takonas Chacham that a Meshav Aveda is part of an Ashvua. Now, in these dinim, you have to understand, because L'chura, the Pashtus Adin of a Meidem Mikzas means that there's a Tainas Bari of the Tiveya, and then there's a Hidah of the Nitva on the Tainas Bari of the Tiveya. Masha'enkin, in the cases where there's no Tainas Bari of the Tiveya, there's no Tainas Bari of the Tiveya, so l'chure, why is there a din of a made of mixes? L'chure, there has to be a Tainas Bari. So when a person comes along and says, Mana Oma li Ovi, that he gave you a mana, and Lepel, you're being made on Chamishin, So the there's no tainas bari of the tiveya. Since there's no tainas bari of the tiveya, so what do you have to come on to the takana that a meshav aved is potim in hashvua? L'chura, he's over here is pashut potim in hashvua because there's no tainas bari of the tiveya, and especially in the case when a person comes along and he says that I owed your father a money and lepeil I paid him chamishim. So now, the question is he chayav a shvuas made of mixas? And now we're saying he's not chayav a shvuas made of mixas. And it sounds like because it's a takana that a meshav aved is not chayav a shvuas made of mixas. Why does he have to need a special takana? L'chura, there's no taina b'chlal. He doesn't have any taina. He doesn't know anything. He's just telling you that your father owed me a mana and lepeil, and I paid him chamishim. So that becomes like there's an issue in even the Rishonim about this Inyan. How is this considered a meidim mixes? In other words, you have to like l'chura add that there's also a tainus ativei over here. That there's a tainus ativei. Somewhere it started with a tainus suffix, but it ended up in tainus bari. In other words, he's saying he paid, and Lepel is saying, I didn't know that you owed him the money, but Lepel, I know you didn't pay. So now Lepel, he was a meshav aveda because he started the whole story. And on the other hand, there is a tainus bari of the tivei. The Maisa is in the Rambam, it doesn't say any of this. The Rambam just says the story as it is. That he comes along and he says that my father told me that you owe him money, or your father owed him money, and Lepel, he's being made on chotzi of the tviyah, but there was no tainus bari. And especially in the case when I'm coming along myself and I'm saying I owed you your father $100 and I paid him $50. So the chura, where's the tainus bari of the tviyah that there's a svara that there should be a meidim mixes, and I need a din of a meshav aveda to part me from a meidim mixes. That's just something which needs beer. Halacha vov. Monali biyotcha al mashkin zeh. A person comes along and says like this: I have this item. This item is a mashkin, and this mashkin is a mashkin because you owe me a money. And on that, the nitva answers: Ein lecha biyadi olav el chamishim. This is taka mashkin, but I don't owe you 100 for this mashkin. I only owe you 50 for this mashkin. So the din is the Rambam says hareza meidim mixes. That's called the meidim mixes. See, even though the tiveya has a mashkin on what he was meidah, but lepeil, that's still called the meidim mixas. V'im ein mashkin shava el chamishim ipachas. If the mashkin is only worth 50 or less, so the din is hareza nishba umishalim chamishim sheidibam. So the person, the nitva has to swear on the kvira, and he has to pay the chamishim. Either he pays the chamishim or he tells the person to take the chamishim from the mashkin. Haya mashkin shava meya or yeser. Lepeil, the mashkin was worth the full taina. He's taina, you owe me 100, and he says I have a mashkin. So now hoyel b'hamalva yochel litin at kedei domov. The malva has a right to mon from the mashkin at kedei domov with a shvua. So the din is hariza malva nishba v'netel with mea mashkin. So when a person comes along with a mashkin, he tells a leva, listen, this is your mashkin, and you owe me money. You owe me $100 for it. And lepel, that person taina is no, I don't owe you anything. I don't owe you anything. So the din is that the tiveya, since he has a mashkin, he has a right to say that it's bechlal his. So therefore, he's a din that he's a nishba v'netel from the mashkin. So over here also, he doesn't lose that. Lepil, he's timing that you owe me 100, and I have a mashkin. I could take the 100 out of the mashkin. So Mela, I still could take the 100 out of the mashkin. Now you have made it to 50. So 50, there's nothing to talk about. But the other part, I can be nishba v'netel. Masha'enkin, if I don't have a mashkin for my entire tviyah, let's say I tie it 100. And lepel, I only have 50 in the mashkin. So lepel, and you're made it to 50. So lepel, I'm going to take 50 out of the mashkin. 50 I'm entitled to, but the other 50 I'm not entitled to because I have nothing where to take it from. So that the nitva has to be swear shvos made the mitzvahs pashat. Now again, say haya mashkin shavim meir yeser, if it was worth 100, so then the person, the tiveya, goes ahead and takes his 100 from the mashkin. So even though the nitva was only made it to 50, but lepel, even if it wasn't made to anything, the tiveya has a right to take all the tviyah from the mashkin. Now hoya shava shmeinim, if the mashkin was worth 80, so again he's timing that he owes him 100. The other one is being made that he owes you 50, and lepel the mashkin is worth 80. So the din is azay nishba hamalva she'en li pachas mishleina v'shmeina v'neitel min hamashkin v'nishba nishba nachamo hoya shava shmeinim is nishba hamalva she'en li pachas mishmeinim v'neitlon min hamashkin. So the first thing is the malva takes his 80 from the mashkin. He has a mashkin, and lepel the mashkin is worth 80. So even though the nitva is only being moida to 50, But Lepel, he gets 80. And now, V'nishba haleva min ateda ala esim shekafer bem. The other 20, which he's not going to pay him, he's tiny, he doesn't owe it to him. He doesn't owe him even, he only owes him 50. But the 80 he was able to take because he had the mashkin. But the other 20 he doesn't have a mashkin for. So on that, the nitva swears a shvuas hatera. Now, kafir bakel, he was kafir bakel, va'amar ein ze mashkin el pikad. Be'emes, I owe you nothing. And lepel, this mashkin is a pikad. Ve'ein li etzli klum. So the din is, lepel, since he doesn't have any proof that it's a pikad, and the malvis, the tivei is tiny that he owes him money and it's a mashkin. So again, nishba malvis she'ein li pachs mishmeinim. So that he gets his shmeinim out of the mashkin, and then the nishba haleva hes is ala hesrim. Ala hesrim. So that's this din. Basically, the Rambam is saying the pashta din is azay, that the fact that the malva has a mashkin doesn't in any way change the din of shuas meidim b'miktzas. So if a person has a mashkin, let's talk about a simple din. The person has a mashkin, and the mashkin is worth 50, and on that comes along the malva, and the malva tainas to the nitva, to the person that's the Levi, says, you owe me 100, and I have a mashkin which is worth 50. And on that, the Levi says, I taka owe you 50, but I don't owe you more than 50. So Lepel, the Malva, could take 50 out of the mashkin, or the Levi gives him the 50, and on the other 50, he has to swear. He has to swear. That's din one. Now, what happens if the mashkin is worth the entire tviyah? So obviously, he takes the entire tviyah out of the mashkin. The fact that the Levi was made or not made is irrelevant. If Lepel, the mashkin is worth somewhere in between the hidah of the leva and the tviyah of the malva is money 100, the leva is being made on 50, and the mashkin is worth 80. So again, so the lepel, the malva, could take 80 out of the mashkin. He could take 80 out of the mashkin. But on the other end, since lepel, the leva was made on 50, so therefore the leva has the din of a meidav miktzas, and he has the din of a meidav miktzas, so he has to swear on the other 20. That's his din. But the yisai, everything is pashut b'negei the regular din of mashkin. The ikar chiddush of the Rambam is that the fact that the malva has a mashkin on the money which the leva was moida, that doesn't change the din that he was a meidav miktzas. And on that, the Raiva argues, the Raiva Taina, since the malva has a mashkin, so that's halach. Just like when a person gives halach, he says, I'm giving you the item, and the item is yours. So mainly there's nothing to be tivei anymore, you have the item. So al derech zeh, you have a mashkin on the item. So you have a mashkin on the chiyuv. So Marshal, let's talk about the malva comes along, your month's 100, and the leva is made on 50, and the mashkin is worth 50. So basically, says the Ravid, if the mashkin is worth 50, so the malva already got paid. If the malva already got paid, so memela, so there's no meidav mixes, because that's called halach. That's considered halach. The Rambam obviously holds no, that even though you have a mashkin, but a mashkin is not the pshat, the mashkin is really yours. The mashkin is only giving you a schus to mund the money, but the mashkin really still belongs to the leva, so that's not really called halach. The mashkin can get lost. You could lose the mashkin. The mashkin is not his. You see that when you want to be teveya, the money connected the mashkin, you have to be a nishba v'netel. So you have to be a nishba. L'chur, you have the money already. The answer is no, you don't have the money. You only have a collateral on the money. You have a mashkin on the money, but the money is still not by you. So al derech zeh, the Rambam holds, since the money is not by you and the leva is being moida, so mele, that's considered a meidav miktzas. L'chur, that's the pshat. Halacha zayin. Mona li biyotcha, v'halo eimer chamishim v'adei yesh lecha biyod. 50 takev, I owe you. Aval chamishim, the other 50 that you're mourning, eini yedeim ani chayev ben relay. I don't know if I'm owe you the money. So the din is harei mechuyev shvua mipnei shahidim b'miktzas. Lepel, since he was a meidav miktzas, so he's mechuyev shvua. And on the other end, ve'eini yochel yishava la miktzas shekofar bei. Shareini yedeh. Knows the kfira wasn't a kfira of adois, which he could swear on because he's saying himself that it's eini yedeh. Lefichach mishalem hamon b'lishvua. So therefore he pays the money b'lishvua. That's this din of miteich she'eini yochel yishava mishalem. Knows he's being made that he owes him a certain amount of money. And memela, that's mechayev shvuas made b'miktzas. And on the mixes which he's not being made, he's not being kei for a tainas vaday. So therefore he can't swear. Therefore he has to swear. V'chein kol ki etz b'zeh. However, v'yesh l'hachrim al nishatein of davar she'eini yedeh b'vadei shani chayev b'y. So in other words, could be the tivei also doesn't know b'vadei. He's just tiny that he owes him 100. He's saying, I owe you 50. That's true. The other 50, I don't know. And if you really do know that I owe you, so maybe you're entitled to the money. You're entitled to the money. But if you don't really know that I owe you money, so your tain is also a tain is shema. So maybe I don't owe you the money. So he's being makrim that if someone is tining on me a taina which he doesn't really know for sure, and he's making it sound as if he knows for sure, and therefore causing me to owe money, to give him money, so then he's being makrim. Halacha ches. Now, monoli biyotcha, if a person says, so we have the principle that if a person has a chi of shvua, like shvuas made of a mikzas, ve'eni yochel lishava, because he's not tining a taina's bori on the kvira, so therefore he has to pay. Now, monoli biyotcha, bari eid echad meid olav, the eid echad is being misayeh the tiveya. V'hanit neimer kenu, it's true that I owed you a mana, avol ata chayev li keneged oisimona, but lepeil, I taka owed you the money like the Eidachad is saying, but Lepel, you also owe me a money. So Memela, so it comes out that one should cancel out the other. So the din is Arezim B'chuyev Shvua, Ve'eni Yochel Yishava Mishal. Now since he's being moided that he owes him the money, and Lepel, he's timing that the other person owes him Kenegde, so then that he can't swear. He can't swear. Why can't he swear? L'chura, there's an Eidachad over here saying that he owes him the money, and he's agreeing to what the Eidachad is saying, but he's timing that mitzad acher he doesn't owe the money. So here the Rambam is going to tell us that the din of the shvuas eid echad means that you have to be nishba lahakkish eid echad. Whereas b'chlal, I mean, in Havanas Advarim, the Pashtus Advarim, you can say like this: be'emes eid echad is believed, and eid echad is believed. However, since you have an emonus, if you swear keneged eid echad, so the eid echad loses his nemonus. If we understand it in such a way that be'etzem the eid echad is believed, it's just that he's not believed mamish. He's believed in a way that if you're makrish the eid echad, then he's not believed. So over here, the eid echad came along and says you owe him money. Now you're timing that what the eid echad is saying is true. However, someone else, that person owes you money kenegde. So let's see if Adam would come along and say, you owe the person money. And now you're timing, yeah, but that person owes me Kenegde. So the fact that you owe that person money because of the Adam, you're chayiv money. Elamai, you're timing that the other person owes you Kenegde, so you have to prove it. So notice if Adam come along and says that you are mazik someone money, and you're timing, yeah, I was mazik the money, but that person owes me money, so obviously you have to pay. And the fact that you're timing that he was mazik is not going to help. So Al Derez Eidachad comes along and says, you owe this person money. Now you're coming along and say, yeah, I owe the person money. However, that person owes me Kenegdi. So now, since you're not swearing, so it's Kehila, there's two Eidim against you that you owe the money. And Lepel, you're not being makish that Eidachad, because Lepel, in order for the Eidachad not to be listened to the Eidachad, you have to be makishim with the Shvur. You're not being makishim because you're agreeing to what he said. So therefore, you're not believing in what you're telling. That's this din. Maybe we'll learn it again. Allah ches. Mana libiyotcha. Someone comes along and says, Mana libiyotcha. V'harei dechad meid olav. The dechad is being misayeh the teveya. V'hanit neimer kenu. That's true. Avol atachayiv li keneged esi mana. You also owe me other money keneged esi money. The nitva is tiny that the teveya owes him other money keneged esi money. So the din is areza mechuyev shua. Since there's an eidachad, so he's mechuyev shua. Ve'eni yachol lishava. He can't swear because Lepel is not being machish the eidachad. He's agreeing to the eidachad. And therefore, Mishalim, therefore he pays. And that the Rambam continues. Why can't he swear? Why can't he swear that what he's saying is true? Because the answer is Shari made the Mashahid Be'oid. Because he is being made on what the aid was made. The Eina Nishba Ba'adah Seidechad Nishba. When is the whole musig of a Shvua Seidechad? Achi Yachkish Zayd. He has to contradict the aid. V'yichber Be'edusei. V'yishav al Kfirasi. So the whole din of Shvua Seidechad means you have to contradict the Eidachad or a Shvur. When you contradict the Eidachad or a Shvur, so then that takes off the strength of the Eidachad. Masha'inkin, if you're not contradicting the Eidachad or a Shvur, so then the Eidachad is believed kishnayim. It's believed like two. And therefore, just like if two people would have come along and says, you owe that person money, and you would have said, yeah, but that person owes me Kenegdi, so we wouldn't reckon zich at all with that other taina. So over here also, when Eidachad says you owe the person money, and you're not being makrish the Eidachad with a shvur, so it has a din kilul to Adam said it. So now that you're timing that, but that person owes me connected, we don't reckon zich. That we don't reckon zich with that time. Lefichoch shtar sheyesh be'edachad v'toan shepori. You have a star which has an edachad and a tiny shepori. So if he would tiny that the star is not true, so then it would be machish deid. So that would be believed. Masha'in knows if there would be two Adam on the star, so he wouldn't be believed against the star. Mashenka, if there's an eidachon in the star, he can tiny that the star is not true. But the pale is not tiny the star is not true. He's tiny shepori. So his taina is not really being makish the eid. V'chein kafran shebol of eidachot. A person tainas against someone that he owes him money. And he says, no, I don't owe you any money. Now comes along eidachot and says, no, that the tainas hativeya is true. And now v'toan sheporei she'echzarti epikodin. And now the person changes his taina, and the taina is, no, I paid back the pikodin, I gave back the pikodin, I paid back the money. So lepel, so again, there was only really an eidachot against him. In his original kfira, there was only an eidachot against him. But the din is that the eidachot has a din of two eidim, unless you're makish the eidachot. So just like there would be two eidim, a person would come along to someone in taina, you owe me money. And now the person would say, no, I never owed you any money, I never owed you any money. And lepil, now there would be two eidim that he did owe him money, and now he would come along and say that he paid back the money, he wouldn't be believed, because lepil, he would be considered a hulz kafran. Lepil, through the eidachot that came along, he would be considered a hulz kafran. So over here also, through the eidim that came along, he would be considered a hulz kafran, and he wouldn't be believed to taina paraiti. So who adin by eidachot? If a person comes along and says, you owe me money, and then there's an he's tainas, he doesn't owe me money, and then there's an eidachot that's tiny that what he's saying is not true. So the Genesis becomes a hulz kafran through the eidachot. There's only an eidachot. The answer is yeah, there's only an eidachot. So if you'd be makish the eidachot, so they would take away the koach of the eidachot. But if you're not makish the eidachot has a din of two eidim, and whatever din would it be by two eidim, so it's the same din by eidachot when you didn't contradict the eidachot with a shvur. That's this din. Shtar sheyesh be'eidachot the Toen V'Nitan. So the shtar has a din as if there would be two eidim. V'chein kafrin shebol of eidachot v'toan sheporei she'echzarti apikotin. So again, it has a din of two eidim. Harei mechuyev shvur ve'eini yochel lishava mishalem. So in other words, he was a mechuyev shvur because of the eidachot, and he's eini yochel lishava. So in Mele, he has the same consequences as if there would have been two eidim, and therefore mishalem. Ma'aseh be'echot shechotav loshen kesef mechaveri b'fnei eidachot. He grabbed a bar of silver from someone, and the eidachot said that he saw him do it. Now, lepel, if he would have turned to the eidachot and said, it's not true, I didn't do it, so then he would have been a nishba against the eidachot, and he would have been potter. But he's saying, V'amar kein chatafti v'shali chatafti. I did do it, but lepel, it was mine. Is V'amru chacham, harei ze mechuyev shvur, because there's an eidachot that's saying that it's chataf, ve'eini yochel lishav, and he can't swear. Why? Because he's not disagreeing with the eidachot, and therefore mishal. Just like there would be two eidim that would see someone grab something from someone, so that person wouldn't have an amonis to say that it was mine. So al derazeh, if you have one eid that saw someone grab something, so he also doesn't have an amonis to say that it's mine, even though he had an amonis to say that it's he could have sworn against the eidachot and made the eidachot uis keach of eidachot, but once he's not making the eidachot keach of eidachot, so that's the din of mitech shein yochel lishav mishalem v'chein kol kiyetze b'zeh. Halacha test, Mona Hilvisicha. He comes in time as Mona Hilvisicha. So be'emes, the nitva could say Preiticha. Hamalvis Chaveri, there's no star here. He could time Preiticha. But Lepel, he didn't say Preiticha. He said Lehoyu Dvar Me'elu. That it never happened. Now, Hevi Eidachot Shalava Mimenu Befonov. Now he brings an Eidachot that there was a halva. So Lepel, right now, his only Eitzah is to be makish the Eidachot by swearing against the Eidachot that it never happened. Because Hail the Ilo Hoyu Shnayim. Now he doesn't have an amonis. That's what we really said before. Now he doesn't have an amonis to say preticha. Now, hail the ilo hoyushnayim. If two people will come along and say, no, there was a halva, so now he no longer has the afsharis to taina preticha. Before he said lehoyudvar meil, he could have said preticha. But once the Eidim said that there was a halva, he doesn't have a schus and amonis to say preticha anymore because he's a hulz kafrin. So Memela over here also, since there was an eidachot that said that it happened, so he doesn't have any more. And the manas to say preticha. The only option is harei ze nishba al pi eidachot. He has to swear al pi eidachot, and he has to be makish the eidachot. So the only eitz is to be makish the eidachot, which is really what we learned before. Shekol makim sheshnayim mechayv neisimamin is echad mechayv shvur. So the din is that when an eidachot comes along and says, and there's a person, Nachmal, a malvus taining that I lent you money, and he's taining lehoyu dvar me'elu. And then there's an eidachot that's coming along and being Messiah the Teveya. So if there would have been two eidim that's Messiah the Teveya, there would be nothing to talk about. So that person would have to pay. Because Lepel, he said lehoyu dvar me'elu, he's no longer neman to say preticha, so me'elu would have to pay. Mashenkin, there's an eidachot. So there's an eitzah. The eitzah is to be makish the eidachot. If he's not going to be makish the eidachot, he has no neman as a preticha. But if he's makish the eidachos, that's the din, and the eidachos is mechayiv shvua. Now chazav v'omar poraiti, but if he ties his poraiti, he's not makish the eidachos. He goes ahead and says poraiti is mishaleh b'lei shvua k'misha b'yarnu, which is really what the Rambam said already in halacha ches. I'm not sure what's being the schadish over here in halacha tes legabi what we learned earlier in halacha ches. The kafrin shebo leveidachot. That's what we learned before. Kafrin shebo leveidachot v'ton shepara. So the din is that he's mechuyev shua v'yachal l'shava, and therefore mishaleh. Churetz mamish this din that we learned in halacha ches. Halacha yud mono li biyodcha, and then he says ein lecha biyodi klub. And instead of him being moida on mikzas, we have Eidim me'idno lov shadayin yesh le'yatzeh chamishim, that he owes him 50. So in other words, till now we're learning there's a din of a meida b'mikzas, that the person himself was a meida b'mikzas atayna. Over here, he was a kaifer hakil, but on the other hand, on a mikzas, there are Eidim being me'idim on mikzas. So now he says, Pasko kol ha'ge'enim halacha she'ishalim chamishim b'yishav al ashar. That he has to pay the chamishim, that's pasha, that he has to pay the chamishim, that there's nothing to talk about. But v'yishav al ashar, he also has to swear the regular shvuos made the mixas al ashar. Why? Shalei tehei das piv gedei le'ma'adas edim. So just like he does piv when a person is made that he owes chamishim. So that's mechayiv a shvua on the other chamishim which is kaifer. So in the same way over here, when there's edim about the chamishim that he was made, so he's was kaifer on all of the 100. But Lepil, there's Eidim about 50 that he owes him, so the Eidim that he owes him 50 is no less than his Eidah that he owes him 50, and just like his Eidah that he owes him 50 would be Mechayiv Shvua al Ashar, so the Eidim that he owes him 50 is also Mechayiv Shvua al Ashar.